come through when they are back here in Islamabad. Now, we need the EFF to execute the structural reform agenda. देखिए यहाँ जो operative word है वो है execution, and not getting into debating clubs, not getting into policy prescriptions. We have known the what and the why सालों से नहीं दहाइयों से, पर हम करते नहीं हैं. So the thought process is that we get into the implementation phase right away, and we have gone into the implementation phase in the last few weeks with a two-pronged strategy. उसमें एक short term to medium term है, which is closing the gaps, stemming the leakages and the losses, and the second one is phasing in the more structural reforms in the medium to long term. अब इसकी I'll just give a couple of examples of that. On the FBR front, जो stemming of the leakages है, उसका एक बड़ा specific example मैं आपको दूंगा. The track and trace system. Now we have the functionality, the implementation has been lax, and therefore operational effectiveness is just not there. And I think this is something which we are working on as we speak on making it more robust, and the numbers associated with that and other leakages are actually pretty large. Equally importantly, roughly 1.7 trillion of litigation languishing in tribunals. And, in conjunction with the Law Minister and the Attorney General, we have now said to the tribunals that they need to make decisions in the next 3 months. The decision can be against the FBR, that's fine, but we need to make decisions. Because timely decision and timely execution, I always mention that, is always going to be critical. And then concurrently, we start bringing the undertaxed and untaxed sectors into the fold. And उसके साथ ही जो डॉक्टर शमशाद ने भी जिक्र किया है, the digitalization effort. जो digitalization है वो कुछ verticals में हो चुकी है in FBR, but I just gave you one example of why this has not been effective. So we have to go end to end in terms of digitalization. और उसमें जो उसका फायदा है, obviously महसूलात उससे बढ़ेंगी, obviously revenues have to go up, but bringing in transparency, and more importantly, what we don't talk about most of the times is client experience. It's superior client experience which is going to restore the trust and confidence into this institution, and also deal with some of the aspects of the social contract that is always sort of talked about. Also under the leadership of Minister Awais Lagari, similar thought process on the power side. जो theft है उसको stem करना है, उसका जो तखमीना है तकरीबन 500 बिलियन रुपए का है, and even a fraction of that comes back in to the treasury and the coffers, every bit helps. And then of course improving the governance and then eventual privatization of the discourse. So the power minister हैं उन्होंने governance पे already काम शुरू कर दिया है in terms of reconstituting the boards. So the point here is that we are not waiting. We are not waiting. And all of this is very much under execution. अभी privatization की बात हुई है. So the PIA and the outsourcing of airports are making very good progress on both transactions to take these through the finishing line, inshallah, by the June-July time frame. और इसमें हम बड़े जो है whole of the government की जो बात होती है उसको operationalize करके चल रहे हैं, because ये अलीम खान साहब ने जो deliver करना है privatization का agenda वो अकेले नहीं कर सकते. If I on the PIA side don't deliver on the Ministry of Finance side, and Khaja Asif Saab does not deliver on the aviation side in terms of what we need to do in terms of action tracks and ownership of those deliverables, then he cannot meet the deadlines. तो इसलिए ये whole of the government की बात करना एक और चीज़ होती है, उसको operationalize, और इसी वजह से आप देख रहे हैं कि इन transactions में बड़ी diligently काम हो रहा है, and it's being monitored on a daily and a weekly basis in terms of meeting these timelines. And while we obviously work on building the pipeline for privatization. देखिए privatization तो एक चीज़ है, लेकिन I have always been saying, and I will continue to say that in my current responsibility as well, that it's the private sector that has to lead this country. Government's work is to provide policy framework, policy continuity. Government has no business in being in business. And I think the Prime Minister is also very clear, and I'm sure, it's really based on this principle that we will take the whole reform agenda go forward as well. Now, it is in this context that PSX becomes a very, very important partner in this journey. Again, Chairperson mentioned that in some sense the banking industry and the capital markets are joined at the hip. But the reality is there is way too much over-dependence on bank financing. And we need both equity and debt capital markets to step up, to help in the privatization process, to step up in funding the infrastructure projects. Do we need infrastructure? Yes, we absolutely need infrastructure. Does it have to be all coming through the PSTV? The answer is no. It has to be brought in within the context of public-private partnership, and that's where the debt and the capital markets and equity capital markets come in. And also, going forward, the whole SME agenda is something where, we look forward to working with PSX on that front as well. Now, Farooq, you just mentioned, the journey that PSX has been on. So, from what I understand, the investor base is 300,000. It's a very narrow base. And I think when we were talking yesterday, obviously we need to aim high with everything that we have done. Why can't it be 3 million at some point in time? And uski jo analogy hai, jo World Bank ki report thi, I'd say a few years back, when they clearly laid down the roadmap as to how Pakistan's economy can move from being a $300 billion economy to a $3 trillion economy by the time we get to be 100 years old in 2047. Now, usme काफ़ी milestones हैं, roadmap में steps हैं जिसको हमने लेना है, लेकिन it's the same thought process in terms of aiming high. The other thing is obviously, again, I understand there are only 524 listed companies, and we clearly want to work with you to encourage further listings. I think जो अभी बात हो रही थी, आपने जो बड़ा अच्छा काम किया है from Habib Securities in terms of taking a logistics company, which is, I think, is probably the first time that a logistics company has been listed, and that too it's been oversubscribed. So it's a great start in terms of diversifying the type of issuers which are coming to Pakistan Stock Exchange. To the board, I give our full commitment that SCCP and Ministry of Finance will provide full support in enhancing market efficiency, transparency, and investor protection, and many other things that we have talked about with respect to the requirements that have come from you. और जो आपने बात की है, you're not looking for subsidies, etc. And again, that is something, I have been very clear that import-led, subsidy-supported businesses will not be sustainable going forward. And I think Chairperson referred to that as well. So, देखिए, in closing, on behalf of Government of Pakistan, I cannot emphasize enough the importance of the Chinese investment and partnership. I'm very clear that increased cooperation between Pakistan Stock Exchange and the Chinese exchanges will not only help us here in Pakistan in deepening and widening the capital markets base here, but also, as was mentioned, in executing CPEC Phase 2. CPEC Phase 2 is monetizing what was the infrastructure which was created in part of CPEC Phase 2, in CPEC Phase 1. और उसमें एक जो बहुत कलीदी किरदार अदा होना है, वो है the transfer of some of the export-led businesses from China into the special economic zones. And through your efforts, Mr. Yu Hang, you mentioned that to me yesterday as well, convincing some of the Chinese POEs to come and help us in executing Phase 2, inshallah, as we go forward. Once again, I would like to thank you for the warm welcome, and I wish you all the very best and Godspeed. Thank you.
This Headlines News is brought to you by and Mubarak ho.